Hi, it's Chef Rick, and today I'm making a fish finger sandwich.
First thing we're going to make for this fish finger sandwich is a tartar sauce. So for that we need first of all a hard boiled egg. Whenever we boil eggs, whether they're going to be hard or soft boils, always use a pin to put a hole in either end of the egg, and that way when you first put it into the boiling water it's not all going to shatter everywhere. If you can see those small bubbles which are coming out of that end, that's obviously the air escaping because it's so hot. We're going to boil it for 10 minutes and then we're going to plunge it into iced water, which is called shocking the egg. And that does, it stops the cooking process, but it also gets rid of that weird black ring that you sometimes get around an egg yolk when you've hard boiled it. So this is cooled completely now, it's just left it in that iced water. Now we're going to peel the egg, so we're just going to tap around the hole outside and then just take your time and just carefully peel off the shell. As and when you get kind of a few too many bits all over your fingers, just dunk it back into the water and it just loosens everything up again. It makes it easier to work with. But peeling the shell off should be a straightforward process. Just take your time with it until eventually it will just slip out. So that's the egg, which we now want to chop very, very finely. First of all, just chop it in half just to show you how perfect it is on the inside, that the yolk is nice and set. But we don't have that weird black ring. And now we're just going to chop this nice and fine. So the same chopping technique that we use in every single video is just a case of time and just working the knife backwards and forward, left and right, and then everything that sticks to the knife, scrape it back down into where you're chopping and keep chopping it all together. When you're chopping a hard-boiled egg, you know when it's kind of done and mixed properly because it all goes one colour, that lovely kind of yellow colour, like just like that. So there's the egg all chopped. And these are the other four components that we're going to put in here. So we'll start with this one, which is tarragon. Again, just as we did with the egg, we're just going to chop the tarragon just really nice and finely, just by working back and forth on a chopping board. You see, just by working it back and forward, taking off any that's sticking to the knife, you're going to end up with a really lovely, finely chopped tarragon. Chives. I would always start chopping chives. We're going to end up doing that left and right technique, but with chives, if you can put them all lengthways so they're all lined up together like, like spaghetti, chop down that way, and that's going to get you really nice kind of even small pieces of chive. And then I would just do that technique just like that, going back and forth, just to make sure you catch any bits that weren't properly chopped. You don't need these to be all pretty. These are not going to be sprinkled on top of anything. You want them mixed in. Capers. And again, the capers are the same. We're just going to go through and we're just going to chop and chop. These are drained capers, of course, and all quantities will be down in the description below. So there's our capers all nice and chopped, and these are Cornichons, which are like small pickled cucumbers. You know what's going to happen, we're going to go left and right, we're going to chop them until they're lovely and fine. These ones are a little bit awkward at the start, but as with anything, the more you chop it, the easier it gets. Whilst I'm doing this, please, if you like my videos, can you hit like below, which is the thumbs up button, and if you want to see more of them, I do 3 videos a week. If you hit subscribe, it costs you nothing, but it's really good for me, so I really appreciate it if you choose to do that. Thank you in advance. That's our cornichons, lovely and chopped. And now we're going to get a shallot. The shallot, treat it the same as an onion if you would, so we're just going to top and tail it, and we're always going to keep that root bit intact because this will make you cry just like an onion can. Safest way, I always think, is just to chop down into the root that way. Keep your fingers nowhere near the blade, keep them well above, and just slice down, and that's a lovely way to chop this is actually a banana shallot, but that's the same way I would do it with all types of shallot. Peel off the skin or the outside layer, and then we're just going to chop down finely through, keeping that whole root intact. You see at the top end we've not chopped down into the root, but we are chopping right the way down into the chopping board here, and those last couple of cuts we kind of saw into them to watch our fingers and then slice against the grain, and you're going to end up with really lovely tiny pieces just like that of shallot. Once you've done all this as well, by the way, once you've got the shallots, you can do that left and right method that we did earlier on, but there's no need. So there's the chopped shallots, that's the chives, the tarragon, the egg, that's the capers, looks like to me, and that's the cornichons. So we're going to mix all of those together. And each component in there brings something different to the final tartar sauce. So you've got tartness, you've got a little savoury in there, you've got a little bit of sweetness even comes in from the chive. In there goes mayonnaise. I'll link in how to make mayonnaise, but just don't be afraid of just using a shop bought mayonnaise. And the quantities will vary slightly, so I would put in about 3 large tablespoons at this point, knowing I'm going to make a tartar sauce that's way too thick. But as with anything, you can always add more, you can't take it out, so you kind of want to be adding the mayonnaise as much as you need. You see here we need a bit more, so we'll probably put that's probably another large tablespoon. And a big squeeze of lemon. Normally you see me, I do the lemon on the, what do you even call it, zester. But these lemons had no seeds in it, so I was comfortable in just squeezing it directly over. If you've got really seedy lemons, then use a juicer to make sure you don't drop any seeds in this. So you give that a really good mix round. Use a different spoon and have a taste and see what else you think it needs. You'll know how you like your tartar sauce. This one just needed that extra little bit of tartness, of slight sourness coming through from the lemon, so I added a very generous extra squeeze of lemon in there. Didn't need any more mayo. The texture was absolutely perfect. But yeah, that's what it needed at that point. So we give that another really good mix round. Just make sure everything's nice and combined. Give it another taste. And that's amazing. Absolutely perfect. So there's our tartar sauce, ready for basically anything, but in this case it's going in a fish finger sandwich. This is a cod loin. Get cod loin from your fishmonger. Boneless cod loin. It will come boneless there, but obviously just say to the fishmonger, you know, that's what you want. This one I'm going to chop into kind of 3 even pieces lengthways, just to try and keep them nice and uniform. So see, put one there as a marker, and that way I know each of my fish fingers is going to be, you know, roughly the same sort of length. So we've got those nice big pieces there. Take each of these and I would chop these into 3 individual fish fingers. It's entirely up to you how you choose to chop these. You can have smaller ones, bigger ones. You could batter the whole fillet if you wanted and have some ginormous fish finger, but why you'd want to do that I do not know. So you see, we'll just do it this way. Everything stays lovely and chunky and all together and all around about the same size. And of course this is skinless cod loin as well, so if that's what you want to ask your fishmonger for, you want to ask them for skinless, boneless cod loin. We're going to make a seasoned flour. There's no right or wrong way to do this, as long as it's flour and at least salt and pepper in there. But I use paprika, salt and white pepper. Again, all of this will be down in the description below. But I add the paprika. It doesn't really, well, you don't see any colour on it when it's finally fried, but there's just a tiny subtle kind of bit of warmth in the background, and I think it's a really nice way to do a seasoned flour. Eggs. I'm just going to use 2 eggs here. Crack those into a bowl and give them a good whisk around, either with one of those miniature whisks that you see all the trendy chefs using, or a fork if that's what you've got. But you're just going to give that a really good mix. Make sure it's all nice and combined. That's what you would call that's the egg mix there. Into a heavy bottom pan, we're going to use some oil. That's rapeseed oil. And we're going to do a breading station here. So this is purely so to illustrate what I'm doing. So the first thing we do is put each of those cod slices or cod fingers into the seasoned flour, and then straight from the seasoned flour into the egg wash, and that'll help that egg stick completely to every bit of it. So just make sure that's tossed in there and all nice and covered. And then into some breadcrumbs, cheap golden breadcrumbs that you get from a supermarket. Don't use fancy panko or anything else like that. And then straight into the oil. There's a time and a place for panko breadcrumbs. You can even do panko breadcrumbs with a lemon and oregano crust and make this all very fancy, but we're making a fish finger butty. You know, just keep it simple. Just use the store-bought golden breadcrumbs into the oil, which, as you can see, that's probably at around about 160. But what you want to do when you use it in a pan like this is drop a tiny little piece in, or a sprinkle of those breadcrumbs, and just make sure that they're not bubbling away violently. You're looking to probably cook these around about 4 to 5 minutes on each side, and also make sure the edges are covered. Now whilst they're cooking on the final bit, use some really nice and cheap mega thick white bread, give it some butter, some tomato ketchup on one side, not the fancy homemade stuff, although I will put a link to homemade ketchup in the video, but just use the cheap stuff, use the Heinz, use the good stuff, the classic on one side. And then on the other side, our homemade tartar sauce. It goes without saying, this is up to you. You could just do 2 sides of tomato sauce. You could have brown sauce, double ketchup. Don't worry about it, but I'm just showing you how I like to do it. And this gets the best results in my opinion. So you get one side tartar sauce, one side ketchup. Here's our fish fingers. Now you can see they're absolutely beautiful. Now we're going to put them on some kitchen paper and just let any of those little bits of oil drain off. Again, put them on there 20 seconds, no more. Keep them all lovely and hot, and then put them on your sandwich. There you go. Close the lid. As you chop directly down. Try and keep everything in place and use a sharp knife, because you don't want this to kind of be falling apart all over the shop. That's pretty much a fish finger sandwich. It's a homemade fish finger butty. I promise you, anyone who eats this will say it's the best fish finger sandwich I've ever had in their life. Oh, it's totally different to normal ones. These are way better than Bird's Eye, blah, blah, blah. It's absolutely amazing. It's a really delicious sandwich. I hope you enjoyed making it. Or I hope you enjoy watching it, and I hope you do enjoy making it. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one.